Welcome back to Andersen. We're in the kitchen again, but we're not baking or cooking. We're making butter. I've mentioned a couple of times that I make my own butter, and I've had people ask if I can show everyone how to do it. It's really easy. You're going to be surprised by how easy it is. So, have you ever been whipping cream? So, you're making whipped cream, and it kind of started to separate because you went overboard and it kind of got gross and it was not good. You were actually well on your way to making butter. So most of us have accidentally almost made butter, but now we're going to do it on purpose. Okay? So the fat in cream, this is cream, by the way, not milk. You have to use cream. It's got to be over 30% milk fat. This is 33 or 35, I can't remember, it doesn't matter. But you need the cream. So if you're milking your own cow, you need to put the milk from the cow through a cream separator and then take the cream to make butter. Okay? The milk portion you can use to make cheese or yogurt, but to make butter, you do need the cream. Only cream. Because the fat in cream is contained in these tiny little globules. Think of them kind of like little sacks of fat suspended in the milk. And when you agitate the cream by either shaking, whipping, or blending it, the little sacks kind of bump into each other and break apart, and they kind of spill out all that fat. When whipping cream, you're incorporating air into the fat. When you continue to agitate your cream, the fat molecules start to bump into each other, and then they eventually clump together, and that's when your whipping cream deflates. It deflates, it falls apart, it separates into liquid and goobers, and the goobers is the butter. We like the butter. When the fat separates from the liquid, you form butter and buttermilk. Okay? So you have the liquid and the goobers, the buttermilk and the butter. So that's the basic science behind making butter. Let's just start doing it and see how it goes. So we're using cream here. You can use heavy cream. You can even use whipping cream. I know some people say we can't use whipping cream because it has a stabilizer in it. It actually doesn't matter. Okay, it does not matter because you just keep whipping it until you go past the whipped cream point and it falls apart and turns into butter, which sounds really weird, but just watch. It works, I promise. So you can either use a blender, a hand mixer, a stand mixer like I am, or you can do it by hand in a jar. I'm not doing it by hand in a jar because that makes your arm really, really sore. What I'm doing is using the stand mixer. It doesn't matter. As long as you're incorporating air, it doesn't matter. You can use an old-fashioned butter churner. It doesn't matter. This is the easiest way. Some people prefer the blender. I prefer this. But it doesn't matter. As long as you're incorporating air into the cream, it doesn't matter. Okay? And yes, I have other things here that we're going to need to finish making the butter. But we're going to turn this on. We're going to kind of go at a medium speed, medium high. Don't go full speed or you're going to splatter cream everywhere. Don't do that. That's bad. Bad. We're not doing that. So go as fast as you can while still containing that cream in there. How much cream do I have in here? I have about a liter, which is roughly equivalent to a quart. It's not, my measurement's not specific. It's about a liter. So about a liter. Okay, that's what we're starting with. So about 4-ish cups. I'm just 4-ish cups, doesn't matter. So that's how much I'm starting with. So we're going to turn on the blender, kind of on a medium high, not the blender, I'm not using a blender, I'm using a mixer. But turn on your mixer or your blender or your hand mixer, whatever you're using, to about medium high. And that medium high will kind of start the process. I'm going to time lapse as we go, but then I'll stop and show you the different stages that this cream is going to go through. So we're going to get started. I'll time lapse most of it because you don't need to watch the whole thing. Well, you do need to watch the whole thing, but you don't need to watch it in slow-mo. So let's start time lapsing. Help if I plugged in the blender. The blender. This is not a blender. There we go. Okay, so let's just lift this a little bit. And you can see we've made whipped cream. Okay, that's whipped cream. And yes, I got the lid out because I wanted to turn the speed up and I didn't want a whole bunch of problems involving splatter. So I got the splatter guard out and I turned the speed up. So we're at the whipped cream stage, but we're not there yet. Okay, we need to go past the whipped cream stage and it'll start to get thicker and it'll start to separate. So let's do that. Let's do that, and again, I'm going to time lapse. So that only took a couple of minutes, but I'm still going to time lapse because you don't need to watch it for that long. And you also don't need to hear the mixer. So we're going to turn it back on, and we're going to let it go until it starts to separate. It starts to kind of release a little bit of moisture from it. All right, now we are at that separating stage. You see how it's no longer really looking like whipped cream, it's starting to look like it's falling apart? That's because it is. It's starting to fall apart. We've incorporated so much air that we're breaking down that whipped cream. Okay, so we are gonna go from whipped cream to butter, but it still needs a couple more minutes. So we're gonna let it keep going. If you're making this at home, you don't need to stop, you just wait. We're gonna let it keep going until we see water, or liquid really, buttermilk starting to splash against the sides of the bowl. Then we are going to let it go a little bit further than that, and we're going to wait until the whole thing completely becomes liquidy again. Okay, we're waiting for it to break down. We are basically completely over whipping this. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to over whip the heck out of this. Okay, so let's start it up again. Okay, it's not done. I just wanted to show you how grainy it gets. So it gets incredibly grainy, and you see how thick it's getting? We're almost at the point where it's going to separate, and because I just want to make sure we don't waste anything, I am just going to grab, see how close this is? This is pretty close to separating, but we need it to separate into the buttermilk. So I just want to grab everything off the edge, scrape it off, but you see how thick that is? We just need to wait for the break now. This is right now just a really clotted cream. Okay, this is what that is. It's just a really thick cream. We need to go further than that. Okay, further than that creamy part. There we go. Remember, if you're not filming, you would just continue on and just ignore it. I usually just walk away and I come back whenever I think it might be done, because it doesn't happen in a second, right? It takes a little bit. But that's what you're looking for. It's really, really thick. So then we're just gonna keep going. Okay, we're gonna stop again because I just want to show you the next. See, that's starting to get really liquidy and drippy. And we are gonna take the opportunity one more time to scrape those edges because I want all of it. I don't want to waste any. So it's so close to breaking now. See how it's getting kind of drippy and it's starting to separate and get liquidy. If you look at the spatula there, there's starting to be bits of liquid on there. That's what you're waiting for, but you gotta wait for it to break completely. So we're close, but we're not there quite yet, okay? There we go. There we are. So we're gonna start it back up again. This time I promise I'll let it break. And what you're waiting for is when it starts to splatter your guard. So, there we go. The solid stuff, we don't need the guard anymore. The solid stuff is butter, okay? The liquid stuff is buttermilk. So I'm just going to unplug the mixer and move it out of the way. Don't worry, the butter's coming back. I'm just moving it for a second. It's coming back. And getting the next set of tools that we're gonna need. So we need a bowl. I like using a bowl to pour because I like to save the buttermilk. So you need a bowl. You need a fine mesh strainer. And though a lot of people don't use cheesecloth, I do. Fine muslin cheesecloth. I put this on here. I don't like wasting any of the butter. Without the cheesecloth, some of that butter goes right through. So the first thing I'm gonna do is bring this over here. Put this guy on here. Okay, that's butter. That is butter. That's why we have the mesh strainer so it doesn't go down too far. That is the butter, okay? That's butter, yummy. This is butter plus buttermilk. We're gonna let that strain through. We're also going to grab this and scrape everything out of this bowl. We want everything, okay? We want absolutely everything out of this bowl. Because there's actually quite a lot of butter. There's quite a lot of butter stuck in there. So we want all of that. This is good stuff. We want all of it. I'm going to get something a little bit better at scraping. Usually I use, where's the thing I usually use? Excuse me. I'll use this one. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The thing I usually use I think is in the dishwasher. Doesn't matter. As long as I have a thing. So what you want to do is you want to get all of this butter and the buttermilk. Get this out of here and into there. Okay. So a word about the buttermilk. Buttermilk you buy at the store is cultured. Okay? This buttermilk is not cultured. And it's not cultured because I didn't make cultured. Okay? I am going to. I promise. The next butter video is going to be cultured butter. Because cultured butter is fantastic. There we go. Okay. So, that buttermilk. I do want to save it. I am going to save it. However, I don't want to have to add lemon juice or vinegar to it. Okay? I don't want to have to add anything. So, what I'm going to do with that, so I'm just gathering up my cheesecloth here. Give this a squeeze. You want to squeeze all that buttermilk out. Okay. Squeeze out that buttermilk. Okay. And I'm actually going to keep this in the cheesecloth. But we'll still need this. Probably not, but I'm keeping it out anyway. But this buttermilk, I am going to keep it. However, it's not cultured. So you can culture it by literally adding some culture. And I do actually have, where's my culture? Over here. I do actually have some culture. Or you can add a little bit of buttermilk to it, of already cultured buttermilk, either store-bought or buttermilk you've cultured yourself. You can add about a quarter cup, eighth of a cup into here and let that culture for 24 hours on the counter. And then you can pour it into a container and keep it for up to 2 weeks. Or you can just keep it as is and add some lemon or vinegar about 5 minutes before you use it. Either way, don't discard this. This is great stuff. Use it to make your breads, your cookies, anything you're baking, your pancakes. Use that. It's fantastic. Okay? Use that. Also, I need a cloth to wipe the buttermilk off my hands. There we go. So, we are going to save this. I'm just going to put it aside for a minute. Because we don't need that. We're saving that for a different thing. We need this. So, this is butter. Okay? However, you can use it just like this. You can. However, there's still buttermilk in there. Not buttermilk we want to save, but buttermilk that we want to get out of here. It'll keep it fresher longer. It'll just make it look better. It'll make it taste better. So we want to get that buttermilk out. To do that, we wash the butter. We wash the butter in cold water. Add some cold water to a bowl. And then take that butter, get it in there, and literally just knead it. I like to keep it in the muslin, specifically because I don't want to lose any of my butter. So, see how cloudy that is? That's no good. We don't want that. So what we're going to do, squeeze this butter out. Okay? Squeeze that butter out best we can. Dump that water and do it again. This is going to take 4 or 5 water changes. So just let me dump that. Don't save that. That you're not saving. That's not really buttermilk. That's just some excess that you're squeezing out. It's not really worth trying to save it. But we're going to do that 5 or 6 times. I'm going to do that off camera because you don't need to see it. You're basically kneading the butter in that ice water. So knead your butter in the ice water until you have water that runs completely clear. If it gets cloudy like that, there's still buttermilk. Do it again. So I'm going to do it. It'll probably take 5, 6, maybe 7 water changes, and then we'll be good. So I'll come back and I'll show you the final water. All right, my last water change ran fairly clear, so I thought I'd record this final one. And yes, I leave it in the muslin while I do this. And the reason I do that is simply so that I don't end up with butter all over my hands and I don't lose any of the butter. And remember, your water needs to be really, really cold. So I usually just take my palm and literally push the buttermilk out of the butter. Okay? And I flip it over, push. You want to really squeeze all of that stuff out of that butter. That's pretty clear. And then I fluff up my muslin again. We're going to change muslin in a second. That's why I have 2. I have another one sitting off to the side. This is just my original muslin. Just keep squeezing. Squeeze as much water as you can out of that. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the butter out of the muslin. Put it on a fresh sheet of muslin, and that's on a cutting board. I wash and reuse my muslins. Okay, so I'm going to ditch that water. And I wash and reuse them so I won't have a big problem with waste, because I don't like waste. And you're always going to end up with some water on your counter, so take care of that. Bring your fresh butter over here. That is fresh homemade butter. We're going to use our muslin to dry it. Okay. I'm going to use our muslin to dry, and I have a cutting board underneath just so it doesn't touch the counter. Okay. Now you can use it. It's just unsalted butter at this point, but I want to salt it. Okay. I'm going to salt it with Himalayan salt because my kids really like Himalayan salt. How much do you need? It's a judgment call, really. For this amount of butter, because I started with about a liter, about 4 cups of milk of cream, you're maybe gonna want between a 1/4 teaspoon and a 1/2 teaspoon, depending on how much salt you like. And I'm literally going to knead that salt in. This is just literally a hunk of butter. It's literally a hunk of butter. And I'm just going to knead that salt in using my muslin because it keeps the butter off my hands. Okay, you want a lint-free muslin to do this because you don't want a bunch of lint in your butter. That would be gross. So use a lint-free muslin. An actual cheesecloth or butter cloth is best. Okay? And you're just going to keep doing that until you know your salt is evenly distributed. I can see my salt because it's a fairly coarse salt, so I can kind of see how well distributed it is. And I can kind of pull this apart. And yes, you're handling it with your hands. Your hands should be clean. Okay. All right. Now, you need to find a way to package it. Now, you can use anything. You could put it in a butter bell. You could put it in an airtight container. Whatever you have. I really recommend getting yourself a mold. And I'm just getting a fresh cloth to wipe my hands off. Because I got butter on them now, which is fantastic. But I recommend getting yourself a mold. I'm using this mold that is in 1/2 cup sticks, so regular sticks of butter sticks, and each line, there's lines in these molds, each line is 1 tablespoon, and it has a lid. These are not that expensive. I really recommend that you get that. It's really worth it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start pressing my butter into my mold. So let's just reverse what's what here. There we go. So we're just going to start pushing the butter into the molds. So you're just going to take your butter, literally just going to break pieces off, and you're just going to put it in the mold. Just push it straight in that mold. And if it bulges out to the side, just push it back the way it's supposed to be. Okay? Just push that butter into, push it in with your fingers, like really push so you know you have an accurate measurement. Okay? Really push. A little bit more on this end. And then again, if it's bulging, just push it in. Okay? Just push that in. So there's a little bit of space between each mold. There should be. And what you're just going to do is you're just going to push it in. Push that in. You can, of course, instead of adding salt, add inclusions like herbs or like honey, which is a fantastic thing to do. I love honey. And I will show you some of my other butter recipes, but this is just so easy to do. And no, you don't need milk fresh from a cow. You can make butter with store-bought cream. Heavy cream, whipping cream, it doesn't matter. As long as it's not ultra-pasteurized, because ultra-pasteurized won't glob correctly. Okay, ultra-pasteurized does not really glob. So because ultra-pasteurized doesn't glob, you're going to have a harder time using it. Okay? This one in here. But don't use ultra-pasteurized. Otherwise, you can use store-bought milk. If you have a cow, you can absolutely use your own cream. Right? So you're going to be using cream, not milk. I sometimes say milk, but I mean cream. You can't make butter with milk. You have to use cream. So make sure you get your cream, the highest quality cream you can get. So not everyone can get fresh milk from a cow. Not everyone has that ability, but you can get cream of some kind. And the higher the milk fat, so I was using a 33 or 35%, I can't even remember now, but it doesn't matter. The higher your percentage is, the faster it globs and turns into butter. Okay? The faster it globs up and turns into butter. So if I was using closer to a 40%, then I would have, one, I'd have more butter. But two, if I was closer to that 40% mark, it would have happened faster. But literally, I recommend you just set it and walk away. Okay? You literally just walk away. It doesn't matter. You walk away and you ignore it until it just goes liquid. Whether that takes 10 minutes, whether that takes 20 minutes, it doesn't matter. Now, it takes less time. Okay, it takes less time if you are using a blender, but I don't really like using blenders. They're kind of annoying. I find them, I have ADHD and I don't like blenders. So I don't use blenders if I don't have to. I don't like them. Usually if I have to do something with blenders, I recruit my older son and make him do it. That's why he makes the tomato sauce most of the time, because I don't like blenders. So, and then I'm just actually going, this one's not going to be a full stick, so I'm just going to grab it and push it back this way. So yeah, that is all there is to it. I will put this in the fridge to set, and I'm only going to let it set for about an hour. Then we will come back and I will show you how I store it. Yes, you can store it in these molds. Yes, you can. You absolutely can store it in these molds. It's not a big deal. But I don't. Okay? I don't store it in these molds at all. I don't like to. I don't want to, so I don't. But you can. You can store them in any airtight container. You can store them in a plastic bag if you want. But I do have a preferred method of storage. So I'm going to grab the lid. That's how much, by the way, out of 1 liter you get. You get a cup and a bit, almost a cup and a half, not quite. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I am, one, going to get the butter off my hands. use the muslin, get the butter off my hands, and 2, put this in the fridge, and we'll come back in about an hour when these have finished setting, and I'll show you how I prefer to store them, though you can store them in a variety of ways. So we'll be right back. All right, our butter is pretty solid. So we're just going to take the lid off. I have a preferred method to store. I like using my beeswax sheets. So I'm just gonna smash that up in my hand. It helps warm it up, helps stick it to itself. Lay it back down. This was a fresh one, so it didn't have many problems. You can also pop these in the freezer, but I didn't bother. I didn't care that much. So it's not coming out of here very well because I didn't leave it long enough, but you should leave it longer than I did. Okay, that's 1 stick. That's a 2nd stick. Again, I did not leave it long enough to set, but it doesn't matter. It's still good butter. I just was impatient and wanted to take it out. So, like that. And then we have a little stick that just has a little bit. He doesn't have very much. He is not as big as the other ones because you don't get a full 3 sticks usually. There we go. There we go. Wiping off my hands again because I have butter on them. And I should have used a bigger wax sheet, but I don't have a bigger wax sheet right now. So we're just going to make do. I'm going to grab a second one that is that size. Actually, oh, wait a minute. I do have a bigger one. Hang on a second, everybody. Hang on a second. I have a bigger one. I didn't even realize I still had a bigger one because I used the other big one for something else. Aha, I do have a bigger one. Good for me. We will use the bigger one. I thought I didn't have one. I do. So we'll switch it to the bigger one, which is normally the ones I use anyway, but I've got like 4 different kinds of butter and I thought I was out. So, pop those in there, pop that one on there, set that one aside, use it for something else, and then we just wrap. I like using beeswax wraps because it just stores everything so nicely, and there we go. And then I like to stick a label on. Wipe the butter off your hands before you touch the labels. I like to do these little labels, okay? And I like to take my label that says butter, and I like to stick my label that says butter right on there. And because I have multiple butters, I'll have ones that say butter, I'll have ones that say cultured butter, I'll have ones that say honey butter. I've got lots of different butters, okay? I have tons of different butters. That's okay though, because you need different butters. I bake a lot, okay? So I really do like wrapping them like this. It stays good in your fridge for probably 3 weeks. Probably is good enough. On the counter, it probably is good for about a week. Beyond that, I wouldn't keep it. Like I wouldn't even store-bought butter. I just wouldn't. But you could also store it in your freezer for like 3 to 6 months. So you can make this in bulk if you happen to have a lot of cream. There goes the ice maker. But anyway, store it in whatever shape or container you like. I just happen to really like the beeswax paper. So that's my recommendation. You can store it however you like and do label it so you know what the heck it is. Okay? And do remember that you can put it in the freezer for long-term storage. I never get that far because we really do end up eating the butter very, very fast. Anyway, that is how you make butter from simple cream. You can buy the cream at the store. You can use the cream from your cow. It doesn't matter. You can use whipping cream. You can use heavy cream. It doesn't matter. As long as you don't use ultra pasteurized, which will not glob up properly, it'll work. Anyway, that is about it for us here today at Andersen Acres. I hope you enjoyed making butter with us tonight. We'll see you tomorrow.